the Yugioh World Championship, the highest tier tournament for competitive play where the best of each country around the world compete head-to-head to fight for the title of Yugioh World Champion. In this video, I, a long-time competitive Yugioh player, am going to review one match in Yugioh World Championship history. Together, we are going to discuss the meta, deck choices, and the plays of the match. So sit back, relax, subscribe, and enjoy.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the first episode of World Championship Review. This is going to be something that I hopefully continue to do, where I take a very significant match in Yu-Gi-Oh! World Championship history, and I will go over it with you guys and review the meta, the ban list, the deck list, and then go over the match together with you. With the lack of current events happening in the world and not having any World Championships, unfortunately, the past couple of years, I think this is something that I want to do just to have something to reminisce on for the World Championship celebrations that we are not having currently. So if this is something that you think that you would enjoy and something that you would want to see more of, please subscribe and comment down below and tell me that you want to see more of it, and I will continue to make it. The match we are going to be looking at today is going to be the 2013 World Championship Finals. This is going to be between Dragon Rulers and Spellbook. The players' names and where they are from is going to be David Keener from the US, and I am sorry if I mispronounced this, Shin En Huang from Taiwan. Again, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, but you are playing Dragon Rulers. This is a very, very popular match from my understanding. I've never watched this match myself. This is just something that I asked on Zodiac a while ago to see what would people be interested in seeing of their favorite world matches, and this was one of them. But before we get into the actual match, I actually wanted to put ourselves into the shoes of the players who were competing in this event, going through the meta and the ban list that they had to work with and what was happening with Yu-Gi-Oh! At the time, because it was happening almost a decade ago at this point. So for anyone who might not have known this, in 2013, we obviously had Abyss Rising come out with cards that are still used to this day in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Such as Abyss Dweller, as well as the Mermail archetype that came out with it, and the Atlantean Structure decks that came out just before that. So we actually had a little Mermail format, followed up by we had the Cosmo Blazer set came out with the Fire Fist archetype. This had everything Fire Fist related, except for some support cards that would come out in future set, and the set that would break Yu-Gi-Oh! At the time. Now, the set that I am talking about here is Lord of the Tachyon Galaxy. This set was a super pivotal moment for the Yu-Gi-Oh! Format in 2013 and really flipped the entire meta on its head. Lord of Tachyon Galaxy was released in May 2013, and this would be the last core set release that would be legal for the Yu-Gi-Oh! World Championship. But this set did include both Dragon Rulers and the impressive card of Spellbook of Judgment. And when we get to the World Championship deck breakdown, we'll see how impactful these decks are, how nobody is playing Fire Fist, nobody is playing Mermails. Those decks were just completely outclassed by Spellbook and Dragon Rulers by themselves. It was a complete blowout for the actual deck representation in 2013. So for those of you who might not know this, Judgment of the Light was released the weekend of the Yu-Gi-Oh! World Championship, thus making it not legal for this tournament. So this would be only including Lord of the Tachyon Galaxy and below it. So we do not have cards like Master Key Beetle to protect Mani's Emptiness and things like that. Now, because Judgment of the Light was coming out that weekend, that also means that we had Lord of the Tachyon Galaxy legal for a very long time, and that is about 3 months worth of time that we had Lord of the Tachyon Galaxy released. So we have had Dragon Rulers for 3 months at this point, running around rampant in everywhere in the world. They were still being used in both OCG and TCG, which did not really technically exist yet until after this World Championship. That is when the ban was split in September. It really is mind-blowing looking back and thinking of how long we actually had Dragon Rulers running around for before the World Championship approach. We did have it for the rest of May when it came out on May 17th, and then we had it through June, July, and all the way up to August 9th was when the World Championship that weekend was held. So we had Dragon Rulers for quite a while, and everyone understood the deck very well, and I think the builds were pretty solidified for the most part. So the things that were changing in the decks were very minuscule if you look at the deck list. We'll look at some of the deck lists together. You will see a lot of the deck lists have very, very similar. They do not have a lot of different changes in them. And that's because the players had a lot of time to figure this out at the time prior to the event. But enough talking about the event, let's go into some of the actual things that we can look at together. The first thing I wanted to look at was the actual deck breakdown of the World Championship in 2013. Now, as you can see here, the deck breakdown is absolutely ridiculous. And by ridiculous, I mean there's only 2 decks that were played in this entire tournament. It was literally only Spellbook and Dragon Ruler. Nothing else was played. Everything else got blown out, and people only wanted to play the best decks because you made it all the way to the World Championship. So nobody was going to play Fire Fist or Mermails when these decks existed. These were just absolutely superior decks that could just beat everything else, especially with Dragon Ruler being a tier 0 type of deck, and Spellbook just being the counter to it because of Javelin Spirituals. This in itself really leads into, I would say, a toxic format. The tier 0, it's just the tier 0 and the counter of the meta. That's all there is to it. I do find it very interesting how that at the finals, at the end of this tournament, how the finalists were, one was playing Dragon Ruler and one was playing Spellbook. This could have easily been a Dragon Ruler mirror match or a Spellbook mirror match, but we actually was able to have the two titans of the format battle it out in the finals match. This is super, super cool. Now, as we're looking at this, we can obviously see that Dragon Ruler is the more oppressive deck here. This was the tier 0 deck of the time. Spellbook was just the counter of this deck. It was not also tier 0. Dragon Ruler was definitely the tier 0 deck. It had the higher ceiling. It could OTK you no problem, which around this time was definitely harder to do, I would say. Mermail was definitely a big push into OTKing with a card like Abyss Megalo, but Dragon Ruler was really the solidified where the entire deck could just kill you by itself. Okay, so now that we have gone over the decks that were in the tournament, I want to go straight into the match. And the reason I don't want to show you the deck list beforehand is because I think it would take away the fun if a lot of newer players have started playing this game since then, and being able to see the outcome of the match I think would really take away from the fun of enjoying it, of watching it with me for the first time, and seeing just how the match played out. So I want to be able to sit down, relax, watch this match with you, and enjoy it, and I'll explain some of the cards that you might not know about that were there at the time. Yep. Okay guys, so here is the 2013 World Championship. We have Spellbooks and Dragon Rulers. This is a very exciting match, and I am looking forward to watching this with you for the first time. This is super cool. So we are going to have Spellbook up top, and then we're going to have Dragon Rulers on the bottom.
Made it into
I'm sorry for the 2013 quality of camera. I cannot really do anything about that. And any cards that I think are highlight worthy, I will have a highlight section of the card on the screen with the match itself, because I know it's kind of blurry from what we had.
And when you get in at 8th place, you feel like you have something to prove.
This is back when a set 1 back row pass was a viable play, but if I had to look at this, this would be a weakness, a weak start for Keener, because usually you want to open up either Magician of Prophecy, Spellbook of Judgment, or Spellbook of Secrets to do your full combo so you can end on Jowgen.
Play without any pressure.
Yep.
And we're going to see Dragon Ruler start off with Sacred Sword from the 7 stars. This card lets you banish a level 7 from your field or hand to draw 2 cards. This synchronized very well with all of the Dragon Rulers being able to search just any dragon of that attribute that you banish. So he banished Blaster, the fire one, so now he gets to add any fire dragon type monster to his hand. And he adds the baby of Blaster, which discards itself plus any dragon or fire special summon Blaster from the deck, and just cannot attack. Cards were so broken when they came out, and they would all be hit immediately on the following ban list in September.
Really
going to use the baby Earth Dragon and discarding the baby Wind Dragon, special summon Redox from his deck.
We've seen so far here,
it was known back then that the Wind Dragon Tempest was the worst of the Dragon Rulers. Stat-wise and effect-wise, it just was not that thrilling at the time.
Game 1, because he doesn't want to go into that 0-1 hole. Starting off with reacting.
Now he's going to activate baby Wind.
Redox.
This was such a simpler time in Yu-Gi-Oh, man.
Now does
I can reminisce about this for hours, honestly.
Well, he's got traps.
And another Blaster. This is so funny because Blaster was so good against the Spellbook deck because it was really one of your only main deck outs to Javelin the Spiritualist. So being able, opening a lot of Blasters or Burners to be able to blow up the Jowgen with this effect was super powerful at the time.
Against the Spellbook deck.
So we summoned Tempest from the deck and he overlaid for Mecha Fanimy's Dracosac. Absolute powerhouse with an Exceed monster. Detach summon 2 tokens, Mecha Fanimy's tokens, and then you contribute on Mecha Fanimy's monsters to destroy a card on the field. And then while tokens are on the field, they can't be destroyed by I think it's Battle War card effects, if I remember correctly. So it was very important when you're playing against Dragon Rulers to remember the effects that the dragons that they use so you know how much gas they have left. But the babies made this so much harder because you could summon the dragons without using any of their actual effects. So you could bring out these Dragon Rulers off the babies, and then you could use their effects in the graveyard to continue playing. We Solemn Warning the Dracosac because Dracosac can actually threaten the back row for him to be able to keep playing, and it puts a lot of advantage and pressure on him. Solemn Warning was a powerhouse of a card back then too. It sucks this card doesn't see play anymore as much as it used to, but it was such a menace of a counter trap when it came out.
This is still in main phase 1. So if as long as he can get enough dragons on the board, he could win right here.
Is that one of the reasons why
Use
we
burner,
don't see cards
especially
like
some
Solemn
blaster.
Warning, Solemn
A
Judgment?
lot of times, after you pay those life points, it doesn't really matter. Like, you stop the summon, you win that battle, but you wind up losing the war because...
So he's already
you
taken
lost it right
2,400
back.
from, I believe, the Tempest, then as well as the
Looks like
2,000 from
he,
Solemn
after
Warning,
Attacking directly with
and then
both
makes
his
Draco Sack in
Dragon
defense. It was a very good wall. It was very hard to clear. And then activates Super Regeneration in the end phase.
And played Super
That card was
Regeneration.
so
That's
absurd.
a very strong start.
This is a card that saw no play at
That's
all before
rough
Dragon Roars,
blow.
and then out of nowhere, it was
Fresh hand
just,
of
the card was
six
just
swamp.
broken. And that still happens in today's game, where sometimes they make cards that make old cards just absurdly
Very
powerful.
reflective.
And that is probably like my go-to example of an old card that had no playability except for in some cheesy FTK decks, just coming into the format and taking it by storm. So Super Rejuvenation, what you draw in the end phase for each dragon you discarded or tributed. So when you discarded all these dragons and the baby dragons, they all count for Super Rejuvenation. He activated, I think, 3 babies, so he was able to draw 6 in the end phase to get a whole new hand. So he was able to make 2 rank 7, set a back row, all for free, and this was a
good play spell card that's going to
absolutely absurd card. I'm not be happier that I got banned.
Spellbook of Judgment.
Yeah, that's a good point that he makes. You're saying that Spellbook of Judgment and Super Rejuvenation are very comparable because during the end phase they net you an absurd amount of advantage. So that, I guess at the time that they were comparable, that you could make a huge amount of advantage
He
points
has a
during the
bunch
end
of
phase.
spell
You
cards
couldn't
in
use that
his
advantage,
hand,
but
so
it was still crazy
definitely
for
has
at
some
the time.
options.
No matter what phase you're in, drawing that many cards is always insane.
Spellbook of Judgment in there. But
Looks like Keener's
without
hand
much
is so
of a
weak.
follow-up, there's not a whole lot of a reason to play it.
Soul Eternity, I think. Doesn't do anything if you can't play.
The problem,
He's a
all
starter.
of the spellbooks that he aren't useful until he finds one.
All phase
Now, this is
Judgment.
something that we didn't see in either of the other spellbook
Off
matches.
his
Keener went
Spellbook of
ahead and
Judgment.
activated Spellbook of
Obviously, he has a
Judgment
quick
during
play
his
set
opponent's
to be able to make the Judgment
That's
live.
because Spellbook of Judgment counts spells that both players.
I would assume this is
And
going to be
since
game
he
this
doesn't
turn.
have spells that he can play.
I'd be surprised if it wasn't. You have the
From
option to
loading up
destroy the
on
back row and then
Sacred
use the
Swords,
Dragon
Super
Lord to go for game.
Rejuvenations, etc.
Draco Sack can't attack the turn you use it to effect
So
destruction.
it's more of a defensive way to play Judgment.
Yep.
And yep, use Draco Sack to destroy.
Draco Sack attributes itself to the target.
You don't need the extra tokens because you already have 2 on the field. It also puts the Dragon Lore back in your graveyard. You don't want to clog your board with tokens. We don't have the extra monster zone at this time, just something to keep in mind for a lot of newer players. So you only had those 5 zones. You didn't have any extra zones. So you could easily clog your board with Draco Sack tokens. Summon Black Blaster. Ooh, that is Dragooni the Night Corseska. There's a level 1 tuner. You played that because it was searchable off Tempest and that you were able to also search it off
Light and Darkness Dragon is
Dragon
known
Lord.
as the bane of the Spellbook deck. If you're not playing High Priestess, then you don't really have a way out of it other than to activate something.
And David Cheener, I believe, scooped up his cards.
Fate,
Yeah.
or at least
So
two spells.
Corseska wasn't used, it was just
That
used as a
was,
wind monster
the end of
with
Duel
Tempest
1.
to be able to search any dragon. So what he actually ended up searching for was Light and Darkness Dragon, and that card is absurd in this format. Light and Darkness Dragon was an absolutely
1-0.
crazy powerhouse card. It negates anything. You can do it, I believe, 4 or
you're
5
rooting for
times.
David Keener
Just
in this
reduces
match,
attack each time,
Big
so you can
solace
no
in
longer
this.
reduce attack.
There are no Eradicator epidemic viruses anywhere in Shin Wong's deck list. If you're rooting for Wong, he still has 3 Droll and Lockbirds, and I can guarantee you that they all made it into his main deck while side decking.
On Lockbird, yep, that was
On
also
Keener's
played.
side, he's most likely to put
good
in
to see.
3 Mind Drains.
Okay, you can already see
prevent
David
his
open up
opponent
better.
from
Just having
activating
Spellbook of Secrets, having
Dragon
access
Lord
to your
effects.
deck is just huge.
Probably along with a couple of compulsory evacuation devices and maybe a Dimensional Fissure.
For Secrets,
This game
Competition.
looks like it's going
There was
way
no
better
Joel
than
Lockbird.
in the start.
If you use
He
Secrets, you're
started
going
out
to be able to
with
Joel
Spellbook
Lockbird
Judgment.
at
It
this
adds one
resolution of
Spellbook
search.
card to your hand, not a Spellbook spell card.
This is already a much better
Important.
start frame.
Level
I know
up.
for today's standards,
Yeah,
that
that's
Dragon
what
Lord
he
deck
did
didn't really
first,
do, look like it
duel.
did too much.
His
But I promise you at
big
the
issue
time, that
was
was
that
an
he didn't
absolute,
get
like,
any
you're summoning
monsters,
these huge
so
dragons that they were
is
all
taken
pain in the
care of
ass to
right
deal with.
now.
These were
With only 9
absolute
of them in his main
powerhouses
deck,
of cards,
it's bound
and
to
that's just
happen
something that
sometimes.
a lot of decks at the time did not have outs for, especially of how much they
He's
can
added
recur.
Spellbook Judgment, any more cards on their own, but
There's
will
Judgment.
begin to accumulate spell counters
insane card.
as he plays more.
So now for
spellbooks.
every spellbook that he plays, he gets to add spellbooks to his hand in the
And
end
they'll
phase,
count for
as well as
Spellbook
special summon a
Judgment. He
spellcaster
starts
with
with
the
Judgment,
level of the number of
levels up
spellbooks
Star
played this
Hall.
turn.
Star
Or
Hall
spell cards
now
played
being
this
a
turn.
a spell counter for every spellbook he plays. He reveals
Star
the
Hall was a
second
card that wasn't
Star
played in a
Hall,
lot of decks.
activates
I think
Spellbook of the Master,
this was a more of a
obviously
tech choice that you could play.
It's also the first spell counter.
And it was
for
every
Star
time you
Hall.
activated a
And it's going to
spellbook
get
or a
him
spell.
Spellbook of
It
Fate.
was either a spellbook or a spell
Fate
card.
is a key part
You
of this
get a
deck,
counter on it.
allowing Keener to
And that
pinpoint
counter
whatever
increases
card
your
his opponent
spellbook,
plays
your
is
spellcaster
the
monster's
worst
attack
thing
and defense
for
by
him
100
at the
per
time,
count.
and simply banish.
And it could
At
rank
the
up
price
very
of
fast
banishing
with these
three
Spellbook decks.
spellbooks. Great, can bounce
Spellbook of
a
Fate to
spell
protect the
back
Jowgen.
back to
We went
Alright.
Judgment,
So by
Master,
my
Starhall,
count,
Starhall. That's
after
3.
Judgment, he
3's the
played
magic number for the
Master.
Spellbook deck.
and 2 Starhalls. And that means he's going to get 3 spellbooks from his deck at the end phase, and special summon a level 3 or lower spellcaster from his
Even
deck.
looking at this card resolved in
That would
today's
be
standards
Yugioh,
is
the
still
Spiritualist.
crazy to me.
Level
That
3
and Super
spellcaster
Review.
that
Just like,
prevents
oh yeah,
all
from the
special
deck during the end
summons
phase, we are
from
going to
Yugioh.
add 3 spellbooks from our deck to our
Also
hand and special summon a
and
spellcaster
destroy
from
all
our
special
deck.
monsters on
What the fuck? Super Rejuvenation.
So
Oh yes, during the end
that
phase,
was
he's just
the
going to
first
casually
turn.
draw 6 cards. Like this is no big deal. What the fuck?
And now Huang knew about Jowgen. And he decided to start
So
off
Jowgen,
by
like I
drawing
said,
more
is a
cards
huge powerhouse in
with
this
Sacred
matchup.
Sword
It's
of
so
7
hard to deal
stars,
with.
Banishing Blaster.
Banish Blaster to
Slowly
be able
takes a
to
look
draw 2 cards.
at what he's picking up.
Now, from Keener's perspective, that's actually a really good
Now,
thing
what could
because
the
Blaster
two
was the
face-down
only out
cards,
to Jowgen really in the
be
Dragon Ruler
here
deck.
for Keener?
Well,
That played
when
around
he
Spellbook of
searched
Fate
with Spellbook
specifically.
of the Master, he went and got Spellbook of Fate. He didn't search that out in the end phase. So I would
So
bet
you already
one
know
with
he can't
Spellbook
use
of
Blaster's
Fate,
effect this turn,
and
so that's
his
one more
other
turn
is
he pretty much
probably
has to
trap
buy
card.
unless there's some other card.
First up,
Tsukiyomi
it's
is always a good
Tsukiyomi.
card to out Jowgen.
Tsukiyomi is
This
a
is one of the tech
fantastic
choices at the
card
time that
for
many players
Huang
chose
draw.
to play to
Ghosting
out
and
Jowgen the
inside deck.
Spiritualist.
When you normal summon
Because it was
Tsukiyomi
on the
or split
summon,
face
you
up,
had
you
to
can target
respond to
one-
it.
you
So when
must
you go
target one monster on the
like
field.
Tsukiyomi on summon
And that
effect, it
resolution
doesn't
turns
matter
that
what they
monster face
had.
down.
It was going to
Tsukiyomi is
resolve.
also a spirit
Book
monster,
of Moon didn't stop it,
which
Compulse didn't
means
stop
that
it,
it will
Wind Blast
return
didn't
to
stop
one's
it.
hand after
Now Jowgen's turned off, now we can play.
Tsukiyomi has turned
Absolutely
Jowgen face
huge.
down, which means that special
Going to use
he wastes no
Droplet,
time taking
start the
opportunity
Blaster.
to pitch Stream.
You're going to be able to special
Give him
summon
thumbs
Title
up.
from his deck. The only issue with
Title
Tsukiyomi was that it
Yugioh.
didn't really have any real synergy with the deck other than outing Jowgen. But the deck was so powerful and consistent at the time anyway, it didn't even matter
Next
about
up,
how well it
like the
synergized
Dragon
with
Ruler
the
of
deck.
drafts.
It was more just the deck itself was just
It
broken.
means the Tempest is going to show up.
And that you just needed, as long as you
Those
could
monsters
play, you
can
were going
attack,
to win.
though.
And these little tech choices like this is really what made certain decks better than others. So he was able to special summon the Tempest from the deck with the Baby Wind Dragon. There's so many different back rows I could do back then. Resolve
yes,
Phoenix
that's
Open Plus, Spellbook of Fate was obvious. You know, he plays Warning, Judgment, probably in
So
there.
there's a Spellbook of Fate, and instead of using up all of his spellbooks
Put
at
it
once,
face down. So you had the option to put it face down or to banish it. Putting it face down locks the
but yes,
dragons
if
under it,
you
so
are
you can't
asked
use it
about
again. Spellbook of Fate
which
being a very
effects that
versatile card really
can
came
only
in
be used once per turn,
protecting Jowgen. It's the
you
locking
use,
dragon
you
rulers
have to answer.
so that
can't
you
tell
couldn't
them,
use
"Oh,
them.
So it's not.
So he used Redox to summon.
Keener's.
Because Jowgen actually has a
responsibility
formidable
to
defense. I
keep
believe it was
track of that
1500 or 14 or something
It
like
is
that.
not
So
necessarily his
Tsukiyomi actually could not beat
responsibility,
over it,
but
but I
it is,
believe Redox can.
to his advantage as a player in this duel to know which dragons have been used
Yep.
and which have not.
Tsukiyomi attack magician.
Redox comes out of the graveyard. Super Rejuvenation.
Oh, Super Rejuve, dude! 1, 2, 3, 4. That's
Four more cards.
Oh my god,
Turn
the
down
card
spare
is
play,
so
Peter Down,
broken!
4 cards and a monster. Grab a Spellbook of
I
Judgment.
can't believe they designed these
But
cards
that
like this.
drew
sometimes,
another
man.
Super
It's
Rejuvenation, and now things.
I wish I could see his hand. I know the
8
newer
cards.
World
That would be
Championships.
an impressive
you
way
can
to
see
do it,
what
but 8
cards they
cards is
have,
still pretty good.
what cards they have in their
Yeah.
hands. And in this scenario, you can't really see it besides what I get peaks of. Too many cards in hand, so you got discard. You just discard some dragons, it didn't matter. Your whole graveyard was a toolbox.
Alright, so
Did you
there's
play
face
double
down
rejuve?
Drake attack and a Redox.
You draw
That's going to
8?
be here until the end.
Now, what it really comes down to is if David can reestablish Jowgen again.
Starts things off
and
with
protect it from
Spellbook of
Yugioh.
Eternity. That lets you retrieve any of your banished
Eternity
Spellbook
getting
spells.
back a spellbook from the
Of
banish
course, he
pile.
picks Spellbook of Judgment, and whether or not he has enough dice at his disposal to mark them all. Well, he does now.
What about how much dice he has?
He's going to
Activates
start things
Judgment.
off with Judgment.
Yeah, these
All the
spellcasters are going to be very
800
strong
attack
now.
points.
Star Halls. I've seen Star Halls get to absolutely absurd numbers.
There comes
Yeah.
Oh, he's got a Jowgen.
So an effect that a lot of people don't know about
Randomly
Jowgen
discard a card to
Spiritualist,
destroy all
it actually has another
special
effect.
summon
You can
monsters
discard
on
a
the
card, just destroy all special
Which will
summon
include
monsters.
everything on his opponent's side of the
That is
field.
huge when the other
First,
effect is you cannot special
Spellbook
summon, so you just clear away all the big special summon monsters,
He's
and then you
maxed
can
out
just
the first
can't special them back
dice
at all.
being used,
I'm just
1,000.
going to activate Spellbook of Secrets.
And
This
he's
job
going for a search.
So it does start off very small, but with the Star Halls, it's going to get
Goes to get Spellbook of Power. That can add another 1,000 onto his spellcaster.
power to make it even
And,
bigger.
If the monster
over a
enchanted by
monster with
Spellbook
search.
of Power defeats another monster in battle, you get to search for yet another Spellbook.
I would say this isn't that big of a deal, but because he has Tsukiyomi, that really is making this. I'm not like too worried. Yugioh being the third card in this format, because not only can it beat one Jowgen, it can beat Jowgen forever if they don't Spellbook of Fate it.
So special summoning.
Definitely big enough to beat over Dracossack.
2400 is enough to take her on the field, but I think at this point,
That's Spellbook of
it's
Fate.
more important that he
Graveyard's
start
loaded.
cycles of fates.
Jowgen, Fate,
so
Starhalls.
that any possible recourse his opponent will have.
I was saying he's
to
going to go
advantage.
back in with Master.
Now he activates Master.
It is
Yep.
kind of the translation barrier between
copying
players during the World Championship is
secrets.
always, I don't want to say an issue, but it's always something with how I feel vocal the game needs to be to have proper communication for all the niche interactions.
Back to make
That's why they have
sure
translators there
that
for
he
the
has
players.
the right number of
Any questions
cards
can
for
be answered
Spellbook
immediately.
judgment at the end of the turn. Not so little Jowgen anymore, is he?
And he counts for judgment.
Yep.
I don't think he has
Very
enough dice.
formidable board.
More
God.
counters. He's not gonna
Oh,
play
3
nine
back
total
row,
spells,
Jesus.
2 spell or trap cards to finish things up for his turn, and in the end
Spellbook of
phase,
Judgment, end
he's
phase.
gonna go pull a ton of spellbooks out of his now dwindling deck. Now he can't get another copy of Spellbook of Judgment directly, but he can get the secrets.
Just gets 4
Which
new
is the next
Spellbook
best
cards
thing.
casually at the end of his turn. Oh my god, this card was so broken. I can't believe this card actually came
Now, one
back
thing
on a
though is
ban
he
list.
can't special summon.
Not this TCG
Yeah,
ban
it's
list,
a
but
double-edged
it's
sword
back on,
there.
I think,
And
Master
while it would be
brought it
really
back or
nice to
something.
have Pike
Phase, Mystical Space.
he can't get it.
There comes Mystical Space Typhoon.
You're just kind of winging it.
Space Typhoon
Floodgates
phase
weren't that popular besides Vanity's Emptiness at the time.
eliminates Phoenix Wind and Wind Blast.
Wind Blast was okay, not great.
But
Three
we
dodges
saw
to fight to
Spellbook
return
Fate
itself
earlier,
to
so
the
that
hand.
one's probably still hiding down there.
And that was probably not the best target for him.
If I'm keener,
Still
I'm probably
that
thinking that I
one
have this
face
game in the
down
bag.
card is
Even though I know he has
starting
Yugioh, I still think it's like a very, like, good
I
position.
just want to see it.
An amazing block.
Yugioh?
After seeing what happened last time around.
Tsukuyomi again.
Yep.
Card is not easy to deal with.
Now, if you were going to use a warning or a judgment,
Oh,
there's Solemn Judgment.
Judgment and Sook. That's one way to deal with it.
If ever there was a card to use it on, it's the one that would make
Round
you lose
cheers.
if it went through.
And that
Cheers on
gets
for
a
Solemn
reaction
Judgment on
from the
Sook.
crowd here in the
That
hall.
is huge. Card
When was
destruction.
the last time you saw Solemn Judgment on
God.
Tsukuyomi?
2003.
That is. Oof. Quality not good. But we'll take a bunch of dragons. I
Longest
saw a bunch of
undeterred,
monsters.
He
I'm assuming
plays
it's
card
not dragons.
destruction, discarding 5 dragons.
Yeah, 5 cards.
He is as cool as they come.
He does not want to lose this one.
No.
You get up 1-0 on
Didn't he- isn't he
Spellbook Deck,
down
which doesn't
blasters?
happen
Didn't he
often.
use
You
blasters
gotta win
earlier?
Game 2. You do not want to get Spellbook chance to get back in it.
He drew Blaster
And
the
drew
way he
into
throws
Blaster
it down.
Burner.
Oh my
Looks like he's
god.
discarding
He had to be
that
so
draw
happy
down,
to
which
see
will
that.
Turn special summons back on.
Oh my god. David's face!
That's a pretty good draw of card destruction.
Oh my, that's
Well,
the
at this point,
dream.
draw so many
He drew
cards,
the
you can
dream
roll.
card.
It's bound
No
to get there
normal
eventually.
summon? I feel like it had to be Blaster
Wow.
to out Jowgen like that. My god, we didn't have
Cut that
Call by the
face down
Grave.
card
You know,
for
we
you,
didn't have
Wisdom.
cards to stop Blaster.
Spellbook of Wisdom.
There was like a select
I believe
few that
it
maybe
has to be
could.
Spellbook of
Yep.
Fate.
Oh
Which
god.
unfortunately you can't
He's
use
dead.
now that there's no
You
Spellbook.
saw him, card
Now
destruction,
there's no
5
Spellcaster
dragons. You
on the
know he's
field.
dead.
And a Wisdom room
His,
really
oh my
helped
god,
there.
his
It
graveyard's
doesn't
so
stop
loaded. Every
monster
orange
attacks.
card is
Oh,
just
yes,
something that's
only
playable except for the
helps
suit.
against spells and traps.
Looking at this
Tempest.
deck list, he clearly does not.
Yeah, and he paid half
use
his life
spellbooks
points with
that are
Solemn
not
Judgment
Wisdom.
too. He's so dead. That back row has to be something like
I would probably
insane
side it
for
out.
it to not to be game.
There's 1 Dragon Ruler, 2 Dragon Ruler,
And just using all the dragons effect to summon out.
3 Dragon Rulers.
What the hell, man? Yep. You already used Blaster for the turn. Just use the other
A
3.
lot of dragons.
Oh my god!
And that's it.
Oh wow. 2-0. 2-0
Card
in this
destruction
final.
into burner wins it. Wins the
Card
day.
destruction into
And
Blaster.
Shin and Huang of Taiwan is your 2013 Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading Card Game World
God,
Champion.
that's so crazy. But it really does show you how it was just dragons. This format was just dragons, and Spellbook was just the counter with Jowgen. Even with the absolute powerhouse that Spellbook of Judgment was at the time, it doesn't matter when just dragons had so much power behind them.
All right.
Okay, so here is the the winning Dragon Players deck list. So we obviously have 3 of each Dragon Ruler, Title, Redox, Blaster, and Tempest. We have 2 of each babies, very straightforward, clean. I know that some people would argue certain ratios for them, but this is just 2-2-2-2. Very easy, straightforward. I think Tempest was the biggest one, like I said, so a lot of people may have only played one of this. Light and Darkness Dragon, powerhouse of a card, like I said. Eclipse Wyvern, banned now, of course, but very good back then. If it was sent to the graveyard, you can banish Light and Darkness Dragon and essentially search it. Absolutely crazy. And Corseska, a level 1 tuner, to be able to synchro with your Dragon Roars to make level 8s. And Searchable off Dragon Ravine, and Tempest, so strong. We obviously have the 3 of Broken, most controversial card ever, Max C. 2 copies of Effect Veiler. This is like, very, very slim hand traps that we have back then, which is what we have. And then for the spells, we have 3 Super Rejuvenation, absolutely insane card. 2 copies of 7 Sword of the Sacred Stars. Very good draw card for dragons. 1 copy of Dragon Ravine. 1 Heavy Storm. 2 Forbidden Chalice, another out to Jowgen, very relevant, and Book of Moon, also an out to Jowgen. These cards were very, very strong. They do lose to Spellbook of Wisdom, though. That was the issue with them. So if you use this and then they use Spellbook of Wisdom to call spell, they can prevent their Jowgen from being negated or flip face down, and then you still have to play around the Jowgen. And then the last 2, you have 2 copies of Andy's Emptiness to prevent special summoning. This card was just broken if you just made like a Draco Sack and then set Emptiness. The mirror match couldn't really deal with it. It was just something that was so hard to beat. For the extra deck, we had 1 Armory Arm, 1 Beret, 1 Crimson Blader, 1 Colossal Fighter, 1 Red Dragon Archfiend, 1 Scrap Dragon, 1 Thought Ruler, 3 Draco Sack, 3 Big Eye. That was really what you used most of the time anyway. 1 Abyss Gaios, 1 Gaia Charger. Big Eye wasn't really used in that match. It's not really used in the Spellbook matchup at all. It was just Draco Sack. Sometimes the Synchros get used, but not like crazy amounts. Maybe Thought Ruler could be used, or Scrap Dragon, but for the most part, it's just Draco Sack in the Dragon deck. That was its bread and butter. And then for the side deck, we have the 2 copies of Yugioh, which we saw. Cards absolutely crazy against Spellbook. 2 copies of Electric Virus, very good in the mirror match, taking dragons and taking machines, so we can take Draco Sack. Very good card. I remember playing this myself, actually. 3 copies of Droll and Lockbird, a great card for stopping both of the decks. 2 Swift Scarecrow, this stopped you from getting OTK'd a lot. A lot of decks actually chose to main this at the time, so that you wouldn't get OTK'd, then you can just come back the next turn and absolutely crush your opponent. Also, being able to use Super Rejuve to draw into it in the end phase after making your board is absolutely crazy. An interesting choice was side deck and card destruction. At the time, most players would be maining this because, well, it's synergized with your dragon deck, but because so many players were playing dragons, this player chose to side deck card destruction for the Spellbook match specifically, so that it doesn't really help his opponent, because having more Spellbooks and stuff in the graveyard doesn't really do much. It's more of this fuels your dragons, and if you play it in the mirror match, it also fuels their dragons. So this was just for the Spellbook match, like in particular, and it can draw outs to Jowgen and stuff like that into your blasters and whatnot. We also have 3 copies of MST, very good against the Floodgate and normal stuff, Flame of Andy's Emptiness. And then 2 copies of DNA Surgery. DNA Surgery was a very pinnable card against... DNA Surgery was a very powerful card against Spellbook because all their Spellbooks require that you control a Spellcaster. So if they don't have a Spellcaster, their cards just don't work. So you flip DNA Surgery, and you can call something like Dragon, for instance, and then they cannot use Spellbook of Fate, thus letting you just normal summon, let's say, a baby dragon to attack over the Jowgen Spiritualist, and then clear the lock, essentially. So yeah, this is honestly as clean as a deck list as I could see for dragons at the time. This was obviously the winner of the World Championship. Very, very good deck list. And now for the Spellbook deck, I'm actually missing extra deck cards here. That's weird. It's weird. I don't know. I'm pretty sure he didn't use any of them. This deck doesn't use extra deck cards anyway. Yeah, it's weird. I don't know. But for the main deck, we have 3 copies of Kaiku. This card is so good. So this card prevents you from either player from banishing cards from the graveyard or monsters from the graveyard. I forget which one. And when it inflicts battle damage, you can also banish 2 monsters or cards in the graveyard. I forget which one, but I know it just banishes from the graveyard and prevents banishing from the graveyard. So against dragons, this was something that was very relevant. You can banish their fuel as well as not let them banish dragons from the graveyard. So strong. 1 copy of Magical Defender. This is protection. Maybe you go Jowgen and then you can summon this after and then protect the Jowgen or something like that. I really don't know why this would be in here. This was something that I don't think was normal at the time. But we didn't see it be played anyway in that match. We also have 3 copies of Magician of Prophecy and the 2 Jowgens. This is most important part of the deck, obviously. Jowgen is being the absolute counter of the dragons. And then moving on to the spell cards, we have 3 Spellbook of Judgment. Absolute nuts card. So happy it's banned, but this card was so crazy. 3 Secrets, 3 Masters, 3 Crescent. He actually didn't actually draw this card either, now that I think about it. 3 Star Hall, 2 Fate, 2 Wisdom, 2 Power, 2 Tower, 1 Eternity, and 1 Book of Moon for the spells. Like I said, Wisdom's the one that can prevent you from losing the cards like Chalice and Book of Moon, because it's pretty much a Forbidden Lands depending on which you choose, spell or trap, and then you could just be the spellcaster that you target is unaffected by that card type. Fate being able to protect your stuff and book down their stuff, very good from battle. Absolutely very, very strong. And yeah, that's it for the notable cards, I would say. Book of Moon just being a very strong staple at the time. Booking down Dracosac was very strong to lock the dragons under it and not get the tokens. It was very nice. And then for the traps, you have 2 Phoenix and Wing Blast. Very, very good, because this puts back the dragons or the extra deck cards that can't be shown by card effects, such as Dracosac. You have to remember, I keep mentioning these cards from dragons, but you have to remember that dragon was tier 0, so every card that was put into the deck was meant to beat dragon in itself. We also have 2 copies of Curse Seal. This was a very bold move by him, but of course we have, it's all dragons and it's all spellbook, so Curse Seal could really come in clutch when you hit something such as Super Rejuvenation, and then all their resources and advantage of their main plays could really just like stop very fast with this card. So I can see this card working out very well. We also have 1 copy of Solemn Judgment and 1 Solemn Warning. These were like namesake staples back in the day. This Solemn Brigade, as we used to call it. Just being able to negate something for life point cost. It's always good, as we all saw the power of Solemn Strike when that was released as well. For the 3 cards we know in the extra deck was Daigusto Phoenix, Gachi Gachi, and Shining Elf. These cards were never really used for the most part in Spellbook decks, so I don't really think it mattered too much about the extra deck, but these were the ones that he chose to play, and I'm sure there's more. There's no way he entered with a 3-card extra deck, but I'm sure there's more. And then for the extra deck, he had 1 copy of Tsukiyomi of his own. Tsukiyomi was also a spellcaster, so it also synergized very well with the Spellbook deck. We also have 2 copies of Droll and Lockbird, again, very standard, 2 MST, very standard. Dimensional Fissure does counter the Dragon Lure deck, as well as 3 Mind Drain, which also counters the Dragon Lure deck to prevent them from activating in the hand. We also have 2 Compulse, very good, same reason as Wing Blast, you can just get rid of it. Not putting it in the graveyard, good against the extra deck, 1-for-1 trade, very strong. 2 copies of Retort. This was a card that was so hit or miss at the time. It was only for the mirror match, and I really highly doubt it ever came up. It was never really that great. The 3rd copy of Curse Steel, I like this option more personally. And then, the 3rd copy of Phoenix Wing Blast. Again, very good. This deck list is also, obviously very good. 2nd place runner-up World Championship, but you could tell from the ground up this was made to beat Dragon Rulers. That was the purpose of this deck, was to beat dragons. So absolutely congratulations to both of them, and thank you so much to Road to the King for having all this information readily available for players like us to be able to look at it and see history of the Yu-Gi-Oh! World Championship. And to finish out here, the Yu-Gi-Oh! World Championship was held in 2013 in Las Vegas in the United States, and it was an absolute powerhouse of an event, just going over everything. It was so crazy. It was one of the few World Championships that were actually held in the United States, and absolutely congratulations to both of these players for making an absolutely stunning performance and placement during this tournament. And that's going to conclude this episode of Worlds Review. I really do hope you guys enjoyed. It took me a long time to make this video. This takes a long time for me to make and do. So I really hope you guys did enjoy. If you did not enjoy, or if you have any feedback for me whatsoever, please leave it down in the comments. I take your guys' feedback very seriously, and anything you want me to change, I will be sure to do it in the next episode that I end up doing eventually, hopefully. And just please let me know your feedback, and I thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you guys so much, and I will see you guys in the next video.